The other thing that I'm seeing pop up right now, people using AI tools to, within hours, create books and children's books. And then it's up on Amazon. But I think more importantly, it comes down to those people that are generating these AI books, their ability to sell and market.
There's probably going to be those creative artists out there who are like, I do not use AI. I will never use AI. And people will probably still pay them if they've got that name in the market.
Welcome to episode 7 of This is the Way with Artin and Michael. So we're here to share experience, insights, and knowledge around career growth, side hustles, and startups, and hopefully help pave the way for others who are in the same shoes we were in 10, 15 years ago. So in the last episode, we touched on how AI, specifically generative AI, is going to impact employees and established companies. But today's episode, we want to focus on how AI is going to impact side hustles, startups, entrepreneurs, and solopreneurs.
Awesome. Well, one thing we want to do first to kind of clarify for folks, because I know people have different ways that they might define it, is to define what solopreneurship, side hustle, entrepreneurship is. So a side hustle, when you think about it, as the beginning of any potential project that, somebody has aspirations to turn into something bigger. But that bigger might be a huge business, a la an entrepreneurship. The goal is to build that business out with the team. But a lot of people today are also focused on the idea of the solo business or solopreneurship, which is a one-person team with the idea there that maybe they don't want to manage a lot of people. They just want to take a skill that they have, offer it out to people, and that is ultimately solopreneurship. They may work with contractors and have, a team of virtual assistants perhaps, but ultimately they're trying to maintain them as the main employee of their company. Anything you'd add to that, Arjun?
Yeah, which is becoming very common actually.
Yeah.
With technology and ability to work from anywhere you want, being a one-man company and making a very, very good living is fairly common.
Yeah. And you know what, I think, with that actually leads perfectly into the first question I actually wanted to ask you, which is, how is AI, going to ultimately impact, these, when we talk about these three areas of side hustles, entrepreneurs, and solopreneurship. And I think already there, you just kind of touched a little bit. Well, the solopreneurship side, AI is probably going to be a big enabler of that. But what would you say is going to be the impact?
Yeah, I think we can kind of divide it into two groups. One is, let's start with kind of that freelancers and some solopreneurs. And as an example, a lot of companies need pitch decks.
Sorry, going to interrupt you real quick, just because you introduced another term and we should probably clarify because it might be interchangeable. When you say freelancer, would you say freelancer fits into the solopreneur, or would you say freelancer is different?
Freelancer is solopreneur.
Okay. But I guess if you're still working a full-time job, arguably it could be a
side gig, side hustle too.
Okay. Thank you.
Yeah. It depends. It could fit, whatever. It can fit both basically.
Sounds good. Artin and I have debated. There's so many terms people use out there. What's the right term to use? So anyway, just want to make sure everybody understands.
I know. And, if somebody in this space that, if you're interested in, you should follow on LinkedIn is Justin Welsh. He does some amazing posts and kind of looked at as the godfather of solopreneurs, and he has great tips. So if we'll link him at the bottom of this, definitely follow him.
And Dan, I think, is it Dan Coe is another really good one, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, we'll definitely link out to a few of them so you guys can follow these great individuals that have some great, amazing advice. But I'll just give one example. So pitch decks is one example where a lot of people need these pitch decks. They don't have the time to do it. It could be a company. It could be just an individual. Well, with chatgbt and some of the other tools out there, you could actually now create these pitch decks very quickly. And I've seen on Upwork where people are offering $500 to $1,000 to have these pitch decks created for them. So imagine if before it would take you a few hours or a day, multiple days to create the first draft of a pitch deck, you can now do it very quickly, which means that you can scale. And now you're not bound by your time again. Because one of the issues with freelancer is that the only way to scale is to scale your own time. Well, now AI has helped you create more time because you can do things a lot faster.
You know what I'm curious about there that'll be interesting, because like right now I wonder if it's this sort of honeymoon sweet spot where, because the AI tools are out there and not everybody's super familiar with them yet, if these freelancers are, then they're probably banking even more, because it's that difference between the time it would have taken before and now that they can. Now people might catch on and now prices might get more competitive. We will see what happens, but it is a really interesting time now, for some of these freelancers, for the work where that's happening.
Yeah, I mean, I think what's going to happen is it's not that people are going to catch on and say, "Hey, you're using AI, and I'm going to pay you less," because the person that's needs that service, at the end of the day, they're paying for quality and the saving of their own time. And if somebody is not doing that type of work on a regular basis and they're not a, let's say, a quote unquote super user, well, if they try to use that same AI tools, it's gonna take them a while because they haven't learned them yet. But somebody that's perfected those AI tools could just, you know, do the same output.
Yeah, that's a really good point, because I mean, obviously what may still happen is that just to be competitive, just as you recently were posting something out there to get quotes on, all of a sudden people are going to try to get the work. So they may at least be willing to now say, okay, I don't have to charge as much before because these tools help to cut some of the time related to it. But I think what you bring up is a really good point that still points out to the need of the artist and the skill, because AI might get you 80% of the way there. But if you get 80% of the there and somebody still needs that other 20%, then ultimately you still need that expert who's able to come in to do that piece. Whether or not some of these individuals who are paying for this service would say, I could go to something like, for presentations, Tome, and create it from Tome, and then maybe just bid out the final last mile. I guess that's where I kind of wonder what that will start looking like. And it's
Yeah,
probably going to be a mixed bag.
yeah. I mean, maybe this isn't a good analogy, but when I think about our Disney days, and we looked at the vendors for the services they provided, we really didn't care how they did it. It was about, well, if you're going to hit a certain budget and you're going to do it in the timeline that we need it,
And at the
automate
quality.
it,
Yep.
throw 100 people at it, I don't care.
Yeah.
So I have that same mindset on my own personal project. So when I try to hire a freelancer to do, let's say a logo design, or even our logo for this podcast that we got designed by a freelancer, I really didn't care how they did it, as long as they delivered what I wanted and by the time that they wanted, and they charged me a market rate.
Yep. No, that's fair. I do know that in some of our history, though, there is a chance that, like we did look at how we might automate certain components of things, even if that meant, like, for example, subtitles, if we could automate some of that, but then the vendor would not charge us all of the fees they would have done on that. We did still use that as a negotiation tactic. So I would expect something similar here. But I also agree with you. It kind of depends on who that customer is, because some of the customers, look, if they're used to paying $1,000 for something, and then they'll probably continue to pay the $1,000. Maybe they'll get to an 800, but that spread is probably still going to be way worth it for the freelancer based on theoretically what some of the AI would do. Except there's
Yeah,
probably going to be those creative artists out there who are like, I do not use AI. I will never use AI. And people will probably still pay them if they've got that name in the market.
yeah, for sure. Speaking of artists, so the other thing that I'm seeing pop up right now, and I don't know if you've seen these stories about people using ChatGPT, Midjourney, and some of the other AI tools to, within hours, create books and children's books. And then it's up on Amazon. And
Yep.
there's a story that I read about this person that did a book, I think in 2 hours, and within the first week sold about 1,300 copies on Amazon,
That's awesome.
which is, I'm like, wow, that's pretty good. Now, I think in those instances, it's very different from that first example, because you might see a flood of that type of product
Yeah.
into the marketplace. So now it's a matter of quantity, quality. But I think more importantly, it comes down to those people that are generating these AI books, their ability to sell and market. I think
Yeah.
that's what's going to differentiate people there when they're creating content to sell. The ability to market and sell is going to be the differentiator there.
Yeah, I always think about it akin to movie industry here, and it's like if you look at the streaming services that popped up over the last 5 years, and like there's so much content being created, but that content, if people don't know about it, it's like it just comes and goes, or the quality might not be great because it was rushed. So it'll be interesting to what happens there. Of course, to confess myself, I'm going to try that with the kids, is to generate a book. I figure it'll be a good way to kind of get them used to a few of the different tools out there. I know some people
Oh,
are
I
like,
think getting kids into it right now is
yeah,
perfect.
no, that's exactly what I'm gonna look at. And then on top of that, actually, you remember Patricia. So actually, next time we meet, she's supposed to have her initial kind of outline for it. She's going to leverage it in the same way to be able to do it, because she's want to do stuff, and she has some good ideas. But it's like the barriers that then sometimes people hit is great. But how do I go about the illustration, or how do I go about, when I do get stuck in that writer's block side of it? It's like she's got her story outlined, but it's like, wow, what great way to be able to take it. Or you might, some of these books for children have a nice little rhyme to them or something. Well, you could theoretically give it your story and say, hey, take this, but I need it to rhyme, and here's what should be on each page. Like, and I'm only thinking about that now. I hadn't thought about it either. It might be, but like those type of things now really enable that solopreneur, entrepreneur, whatever it is, to be able to now, or call it a side hustle in this case, because people might just be doing that maybe even just for fun, and they just want to publish something. But that is going to be a great, these tools in general. There's almost everything that you could think of. If you say social media, all of a sudden you could be like, well, somebody's doing YouTube. The AI can help you generate scripts for the video, or at least outlines for ideas. And you could then take that and you could put it into another tool that will actually, if you don't want to be in it, help come up with the images and even edit, something for you. And there's all these faceless channels showing up out there now for people who like want YouTube, but they don't want to be in it. And then when it comes to the thumbnail, now, once more, there are these sites coming up. They're so far not amazing with it, but look, you can do a lot now on your own just by, on your iPhone. My son taught me this the other day. You can now hold down the button on your image. It will remove the background. He he takes himself from that, and then he'll lay it over whatever background he's pulled, because he's growing his own YouTube channel now. And it's like, at 11 years old, and he hasn't even reached into the AI tools yet. I'm like, okay, let's learn the fundamentals. But around like SEO and stuff, I'm like, dude, this is where you should just look and leverage a few of these different things. And anyway, yeah, it's like the potential there of all the things that unlocks for all the things that people said were barriers is going to be key. What's this points out is the importance still that it ultimately comes down to execution. Because if people can't do some of these things now, or if they say, well, I can't now because there's too many people doing it, it's just somebody making an excuse. And unfortunately, they probably won't make it in any of those, side hustle, entrepreneur or solopreneur world.
Yeah. At the end of the day, it all comes down to execution. Just like how the tools don't automatically make you an artist. The tools don't make you a founder either. It's the execution, the ideas that make it. The tools just enable it and make it faster in today's world. Yeah. The other story that I heard when you're talking about the media, there was this YouTuber that is now using AI to dub his videos into other languages and launching international versions of his channel.
That's what movie studios did. That's impressive. That's what we were in the business. So that's crazy.
Yeah. So I think I read where prior to the AI tools, it was like $4,000 to dub one of his 60-minute shows or whatever it was. Yeah. Now he does it for hundreds of dollars because of AI. So he's launching additional channels. It's pretty amazing.
Where was AI, Art, in telling me that my laptop was close to the camera? There we go. Now I'm opened up my space again. It was totally blocking off the base here.
I didn't even notice it.
No, me neither until now. I just said, why am I in a 4x3 TV set? And you're anyway. All good.
Last example is for like freelancers or kind of making some side hustles is coding. I've seen a lot of examples of people very quickly producing games using ChatGTP.
Mm-hmm.
That's one example I read as this guy built a old school snake-like game in like 15, 20 minutes and then published it on the App Store.
You know, it's cool. I think again, you know, we mentioned execution before. Ideas and execution are these sort of key things. And it's true, actually. Now you have this assistant, in essence, with AI that can help you with idea generation. But AI, as of now anyway, we'll see how it changes in the future, is ultimately recycling and looking for what's worked out there before. And by the way, sometimes that works. If you look at movie making today, rarely is there just truly original, movie. It's ultimately like remixes oftentimes that happen. In fact, gosh, if I can find it, I want to link this below too. There was something in the past I remember really enjoying called Everything is a Remix. And when they looked at the different things, be it music, be it movies, be it, I think, art, and how ultimately everybody's just remaking something anyway. So as I say this out loud, it makes me wonder, because at first I was going to say, the originality is still important. But now as I think about that, it's usually just a little spin on something. And with the right prompt, even somebody could say, okay, I need something, but I need you to pick the one, and then put a spin on it that people haven't combined before. And AI can help with that. And you might all of a sudden have this idea where you're like, it feels unique enough to the market. And then again, I think the execution side of it, this is where, once more, through AI, you can generate at least plans and stuff like that. But I guess the question might be is where it could be valuable. And I know you and I, even as we think about how we might help people, this is probably an area of how do you then help people with the accountability and the moving forward side? Because that's where the community is still important for people who might otherwise still do the work to pull those things up, but not actually get it to the next level. So I keep coming back to that. Sorry, I just think it's such an important thing.
No. It's I think it's a good segue to go from like freelancers and side hustles to startups and entrepreneurship. But I think what AI is doing there is, you touched on idea validation. It's making it so easy for you to validate your idea and then quickly shuffle through ideas until one sticks.
Yeah.
Instead of taking years, months, you can do it in weeks.
Yeah. Like a brainstorm partner.
It is unbelievable. You could literally, so as an example, let's say you have an idea and you need to validate the idea. Well, the first thing that you would do is you would use ChatGPT and say, I now have a idea for this product and this is what it's supposed to do.
Yeah.
Provide me problem statements for this. And then you can follow it up with provide me, pretend that you're now a customer of this product. What are the benefits that you're going to get from this? Yeah. Going through that process, you can come up with all the marketing copy you need to build a landing page. And then there's AI, there's tools out there already that very quickly, even drawing on a napkin, will generate that napkin drawing to a UI for you. And very quickly, you'll have a landing page up where you can now test that idea. And then you'll go to social media and drive traffic to it. My guess is that at some point, driving traffic to your landing page, AI will do for you as well, because it'll just automate the ad posts and everything. Yeah. It's just making it so much sense. So one, it saves a lot of time and it saves you a lot of money, right? Because you're not going to have to hire people to test your idea. You only will hire people once you've actually landed on something that works. You're like, okay, this is the next one. Let's go for it.
Yeah. No, I 100% think you're right. And I think, again, it's easy to start, thinking about that across every different field. And I think this is where one thing that somebody needs to be conscientious of is, if they are picking an industry, like try to find an industry that they're going to be in where they either acknowledge how they will leverage AI as a key component to it and what that does mean from a price standpoint. Because if people aren't thinking about where is it old Wayne Gretzky thing, skate to where the puck is going, like a hockey thing. You want to make sure you go where it is. Well, so people have to be aware of this, because if you do pick a field, like right now, we'll see, by the way, I think back to what you were saying early on, there is still an artistry with it. People may still pay for it. But like, when you think about cover letters now, it's like, why bother writing a cover letter? ChatGPT will do a great job, give it the insight. Even resumes. you could take it and you could basically say, hey, here's the job description. Here's my current resume. Please update this accordingly. You still have to go through and do some refinement, granted, but and maybe that's a piece you will pay somebody else for. But at the same time, there's a chance now that a service that people might have paid a lot of money for before, that may not be as good of a service for people to do in the future. And I think one of the ones I was just sharing yesterday with you, read the article on, is it Chegs?
Oh yeah.
Yeah. And where in that case, it's like, their business is really suffering because a lot of it was actually kind of helping in a tutoring way students and stuff. But now students will just go to ChatGPT and get the answers for it. So people really do have to think about what that looks like. And I get this newsletter as I'm looking at business acquisition as well. And they had one example yesterday where they're like, it was, I think, around the resume writing services. And, one of the things I wrote back, because they basically say pros and cons to buying this business. And they had nothing on there about AI. So that was actually one too. I'm like, hey, you might want to consider adding that component to start thinking about that, because it's moving fast. And the person wrote back, who owns the company, and they're just like, no, that's, a great point, something we've been overlooking. And I'm like, it's coming fast. So you can't overlook it.
Yeah. Speaking of resumes, I do think that, especially in today's market, where hiring has slowed down, there's more layoffs happening and people entering the workforce, even though unemployment is still very low.
Yeah.
That hiring an expert resume writer, even if after you've used your ChatGPT to create your own, I would still hire an expert resume writer, because they have seen what works and what doesn't. And I would want their final touches on my resume. And if they're still charging the same price, and if it's been 2-3 months and I've had no success with what I've done, then I'm going to do that. If the job market was like last year, where it was like hiring, like this, you just hire, then it's less of an importance. I think that the market conditions greatly impact resume writing.
I'm maybe if it was that 2 or 3 month scenario, would I consider something like that? But I guess my perspective on that one is, first off, not everybody can, like, some of these services aren't within everybody's reach. I think when you're executive, in our shoes at times, it's like, okay, that's just something that feels like, well, sure, why wouldn't you, to stand out amongst the other executives? But I also think that, the way I see it, whenever I hired anyone, most of the time, the people that really had the foot in the door anyway, it wasn't the resume. It was the relationships and everything else. A resume is just one of those things that you do have to submit, and you don't want it to be a killer of the sort of deals. But look, now just the simple things that people, had failed before on, which is just your spelling and grammar, ChatGPT can help you solve. So I don't know. That's why I don't know that I would actually leverage in the same way, but I do get what you're saying. And it's also maybe a component of time as well. But I just don't think the resume actually is very valued anyway, except maybe some keywords. And I think that's what ChatGPT can, help with when you're submitting it into a company. And now the fact that you can do that, because if you pay for a service, you have one resume. But you have the chance here with ChatGPT to actually, and I bet you anybody's going to have a tool they build soon that sits on top of that, and it's going to actually spit out something that says, just give us the JD, we will give you an updated resume per JD every time, and tell us your end destination, we will send it to you along with this cover letter. And it's unless you pay that service that you were describing to do that each time, but then I don't think it's scalable. So anyway, that's one that will be interesting for us to look back on in a couple of years and be like,
I guess job level matters too. At certain job levels, that's where relationships and contacts come into play. But at some levels, it's just not there, and you're jumping companies. So I get it. It's gonna be interesting to see how the resume aspect of looking for a job changes.
Yeah.
And how important or not important is going to be in the future.
Yeah.
The other things that if you want to be a founder, the efficiency that AI now provides for you is pretty incredible. You could automate, a bunch of repetitive tasks, especially if you're like a two-person founding team and you're just getting your ideas going.
Yeah.
Just automating and letting AI do a bunch of the mundane tasks and getting your temporary logo design up, all those stuff that took a lot of time before, and it took time away from the main thing, which was what is that product or service that we want to launch, and is it a good idea? Like that's where all the energy should go. Now you could do that because you can just have these AI tools worry about the rest, which is pretty amazing.
Yeah. No, that's huge.
The other thing that I think it can also do is help with your marketing and sales effort, because you could very quickly figure out your personas and like who are your target audience should be for this, and even look for and identify those target audiences,
Yeah.
and then have uh, customizable but automated messages that go to all of them and try to reach out. It just in general, it makes becoming a founder and a startup founder very, very easy. It goes back to what you had said: execution
Mm-hmm.
and having the a good idea, and then having the not letting fear or anything hold you back, just going for it. That to me is the key.
Yeah. And I think hopefully in this point, though, based on what you described, a few of those things that AI could do, if people leverage that now, they might actually decrease their chance of failure, assuming they use it, because now they can do some of these things about testing or getting more information about the market and stuff like, that, because that's where a lot of people fail. The question will be, it'll be really interesting to see, even though it's more at people's fingertips now, will they still think that they know best, don't need to get the market and plow, forward? Because that's often where people then make that mistake. They go out, they build out a solution that maybe nobody needed.
Yeah. How are you personally using these AI tools right now?
Yeah. So it's funny. I was thinking about it. I think I probably spend at least 4 hours of my week right now going down the AI rabbit hole. Last night I was just looking at different prompts to use around various things, some of the ones of which you just, described. Because like sometimes I'm like, whoa, I didn't even think that you could leverage it, that way. And it's like, that's really interesting to be able to do. Like somebody even found this workaround to get ChatGPT to generate, GIFs for you. And then in other cases, it's like, I think right now, and you and I have both been talking about this with the courses or programs that we're working on. Well, in some cases, actually, we're going to incorporate in there because there's certain areas that the prompts are going to be more valuable that we give the individual than to be able to say, here's 5 or 10 or 20 potential, ways the conversation can go. Well, instead, as long as you could say the prompts, then that helps, the tool. So I know you're trying to like incorporate that more into actually our courses so that people are leveraging it on their end and getting more. It's not real-time answers, but it gets a little bit more specific because they could give it a few more details. Otherwise, I've been leveraging it around, the editing front right now. Been doing some tests, especially with it when it comes to like being able to do some auto, transcription and caption creation, or whether it's trying to do within Adobe Premiere, they've got tools that will help you on the mixing front that are AI based, on color correction that are AI based, and then I'm using one right now that's trying to auto remove, the ums and the gaps and things in speech. Now, I will say the one tool I was just using for that, I think it's called Glimmer or something. It did remove it almost too much where it's awkward. So there is this balance still where I think the tools are still being, refined. And then otherwise, like right now with Canva and or Adobe's, version of that, each of those are really interesting too because of the tools that they have to be able to automatically generate and remove background. So graphic design component is another area I'm trying to leverage it on there. Those are the initial ones that pop to mind, but I'm definitely looking at like when we talk about Tome, or actually there's like the assistants now that you can get the Chrome extension to that will pop on and it will take notes in your meeting for you. And like, these are all tools that I'm starting to explore a little bit more now as well. But I feel like there's more, but almost everything I'm working on, honestly, if I have something like whenever I'm doing a LinkedIn post, I take my post and it's going into the chatgpt to grammar, spell check. And then sometimes I'll also ask it to simplify it. Or sorry, it's like all of a sudden there's all these things. When I'm trying to learn something in a video, I will take that video and I now have either plugins or there's some specific sites I will drop it into to get me a summary, a high level summary, because sometimes I don't need the entire video. I just need the summary of it. And that's another way that I'm using it. But I wouldn't be surprised if each week there's 5 different tools I'm downloading and testing and seeing what those, how those work.
Yeah, no, the speed of how new tools are coming out is hard to keep track of.
Yeah.
I'm kind of in the same boat as you are, just testing and playing around and using some of them on a regular basis, especially ChatGPT and Midjourney.
Yeah. I want to try with Excel and Google Sheets. Like, there are these tools out there I want to try that plug in the AI level component for that. And that's important for me because, granted, while I've experienced managing, P&Ls, I also had the benefit to having partners in finance who generally manage a lot of that stuff. Or I could think about it on my real estate front now on the bookkeeping, side of that. And it's like, to be able to actually just let the document know what you're trying to do, and these are the areas, rather than learning all the formulas. I mean, I know I could, but it's like, it just feels like more busier work for me now. And I know often where I want to go. And I was always able to articulate that to somebody in our finance team to be able, like, here's what I'd like to see. To be able to do that to a Google Sheet, almost like it was that finance partner. I know our finance partners are like, we do so much more. I get it. But like, those are some of the things that are valuable for me to then look at and then interpret the data to be able to make decisions. And that was another thing I was actually came across yesterday I thought was really interesting, is that in some cases, people are taking that data and saying, hey, I've noticed X and Y. What other abstractions do you have from this data that I might not be seeing? And it's like, it could actually help be that third eye, if you will, that's helping them see things that they couldn't see before. So
I've seen a lot of those examples with plugins for Google Sheets and Excel. Yeah. And it's pretty incredible how quickly it can analyze the data. The one example that stood out to me was somebody fed, I forget it was Google Sheet or Excel, but it's one of those, sheet type of programs. And they fed it a year-long product inventory and like sales numbers. And very quickly it came back and provided like what your best product is, what your margins are, where the opportunities are. I was like, holy cow, look at that. That's strategic. Yeah.
Yeah, no, I've seen a few of those too. And actually, that's where I was leveraging some of it as I analyze some businesses now. And I was looking at stuff and trying to understand the TAM and SAM and like just some of the market dynamics around it and to do some research on that. And it's incredible. There are actually 2 things I came across yesterday in my going down this, rabbit hole. One of them, and I was trying to find the actual prompt here, but one of them is basically you can use like ChatGPT to leverage. There's a famous book, Blue Ocean Strategies, and you could basically, there's a prompt so that you could say, hey, help me with my market share applying these Blue Ocean strategies. And you get really specific once you tell it your business. And that to me is really interesting to be able to see what comes back. There's another one where you can actually, you pick the book and there's this, again, framework for it. And you basically say, hey, I want you to apply this book to my business, which is XYZ. Here's where we're at now. Awesome. Yeah, no. And it's like stuff like that. I mean, it's kind of like there's one more too, is expert consultants, where you can literally basically tell it and have it respond to you back like it's Elon Musk or Bezos, or like I want to do it actually where I put back and say, hey, explain it to me like you're Abraham Lincoln. How should I make this decision? Because he was always supposed to be, calm and reflective. Like these mentors in your pocket, for lack of a better way to put it, that you're able to get out of this. And you still have to make the decision. And I swear it's the last thing I'll say on this, because it's another interesting prompt that some people are doing. Some people are actually looking for ChatGPT to say to it, to basically say, never, ever respond back to me directly with an answer. I want you to always first respond with questions. And what they're doing is they're basically training ChatGPT to make sure it is not just giving you the knee-jerk reaction, which may not be right, by asking those questions, it gets clarity to have a better answer. And that in itself is also like, to me, an incredible, like,
Yeah, to me that process of prompting becomes an art form, and
yeah.
as a side hustle, I'm now seeing people actually sell like prompts, like on a like an ebook style selling. It's pretty amazing. I don't know. I think this was a pretty fantastic conversation. Will whenever we publish this episode, we'll link to the tools that we are using at the moment. And explain like how we're using it, and if it's beneficial for you guys, then even better. But if you like these conversations and the information we're sharing, subscribe, follow, share with your friends. The support will be very helpful. And if there's anything that you have questions, comments about, just don't hesitate. Drop them anywhere comments are available and whatever platform you're on.
Before I want to end on a little bit of a fun note, if you will, here, or maybe not, depending on our answer. So, 20 years from now, is AI a friend or a foe? It's a two-part question.
A friend.
Okay, I hope so. And then maybe which movie then best represents our future, do you think?
Whenever you think of technology taking over, it's always the technology is the bad guy in the movie.
It's Terminator or The Matrix.
Yeah, I can't think of iRobot. Was that what did that turn in a good? I can't remember. I don't remember a movie where artificial intelligence was depicted as the good character. So I can't remember.
I know, right? It is funny that oftentimes it may not be. But here's a list of ones that I had, and you tell me which one you think honed in most. Ready Player One, not necessarily AI as a bad guy, and that one. The bad guys were still the humans, just using the computers. Terminators, Matrix, the movie AI, which interesting representation. Wall-E, iRobot, Interstellar, Her, where we've got our little assistants on our phones that are our girlfriends or boyfriends. Let's see, Interstellar.
I got it.
It's Minority Report, Westworld, Star Wars, and Star Trek were the other ones I had here.
I'll tell you a better one.
Yeah.
Jarvis and Iron Man. That's what's going to be.
All right. That's good, because that's your assistant in that sort of way that you have. Of course, depending on if you're not careful, what was the version he turns into? Ultron. So he does go bad, just to clarify. He's taken over, and there's that. And then wait, Jarvis becomes part of Vision in the end there, which might actually be a good way to paint it, because then eventually it becomes that.
Yeah. To me, that's what I would say it's going to be in 20
years. I think when I think about the movie AI, I actually think that movie is a really interesting way to look at it, where you then start having AI contemplating why it's not like the Haley Joel Osment in that one wants to be a real boy. And I think that's a really interesting way to look at it. Movies like Star Wars and Star Trek, it's kind of part of it, but you don't ever really see it so much in there. But I would say probably AI, but I also have to admit that Wall-E, unfortunately, is what I think it could be. And I say, unfortunately, look, they're living a life up in there, but humans lean into it so much that, they're just rolling around in what are basically
floating. That's why maybe we should, all of us, be on the Elon Musk bandwagon and make sure we get to Mars.
You're right. Exactly. Yeah. That's fair. Awesome.
All right. See you on the next one.
All right. See you there.
This is the way.
This is the way.